around my story.
I ran away from home, and it was such a blast. Did I get your attention with my title up there? Well, listen to my story. I promise it is such an eye-opening experience that I would never recommend to anyone. I was never looked upon as the bad seed in my family. No one expected this from me. In fact, everyone thought of me differently and expected great future scenarios for me. I was not a goody-goody, but I was a decent kid. I got straight A's, took AP classes, was the president of the suicide prevention club, wrote for the school paper, and played almost every sport there is. I was stable and rational, at least from the outside. No one, including myself, was ever aware of what I was like on the inside. Feel free to picture how I felt, but I'm telling you, it was not a beautiful picture. The whole thing seems strange and out of character to me in retrospect, but at the same time, it felt like the only solution to a series of problems. There had been tension rising within my family for years, and I felt totally overwhelmed by the academics and activities I had on my plate. My boyfriend at the time was experiencing the same issues. I can't remember what specifically set it off, but on this particular night, both of our situations were imploding at the same time in the same place. We had no idea what to do. Running away was never an option for me. I never even considered it. I spent my teen years trying to fix my family and my relationship with my boyfriend. He was also trying to do the same for his family on top of offering me all the support he could offer. One day, things got out of hand. My mom and dad started yelling at each other at midnight. My young sister came to my room, and she was crying her eyes out. She had covered her ears with both her hands, trying to block out the sound, but it was too loud. I hugged her and just stared at the door, without shedding a single tear. I got my cell phone and texted Adam, my boyfriend. I asked him to come over to my house. And so, we ran. We pulled on our matching Doc Martens and gathered up our things. I went out the window. He followed me a few minutes later. We had absolutely no intention of ever finishing high school or ever returning back home. The next 5 days taught me more about what it takes to be an adult than all my high school classes combined. That being said, I would not recommend anyone would do what we did. Adam and I were not fulfilling some kind of Moonrise Kingdom fantasy or creating some kind of romantic getaway. We broke our parents' hearts and made our lives significantly more difficult for months to come. It was not glamorous and it was not pretty. It didn't provide any kind of a long-term solution for anything. We had to call in a lot of favors that first night. Both of us had totally isolated ourselves in dealing with our family problems, and it required some begging to find a place to stay. We had little to no friends. We got enough cash for a room at a hostel on the second night by selling my dad's laptop, which was the only thing I carried along with me before I ran away. That sucked, big time. I framed it as a freeing myself from unwanted communication thing to feel better. But really, I had no way of finding out information if I needed to. That safety net was gone, and it terrified me. In a moment of pure teenage rebellion, I tossed my phone into the ocean. The thing was virtually worthless in terms of its price value, so we figured we may as well give it some symbolism. I turned on the flashlight app so I could see its graceful flight through the night sky and into the sea. I watched as the water breached the case and it flickered off for the last time, the reams of ignored calls and texts remaining unanswered. In my mind, the phone was a kind of a stereotypical metaphor for the life I was throwing away. Whatever I did now was entirely up to me, for better or for worse. It was the lightest and freest I have ever felt in my life. I didn't have to deal with anything, or at least, so I thought. We spent the first few days happy and full of optimism. romping around downtown Seattle without a care in the world. We survived on a trail mix taken from my house and cheap Chinese food from Pike Place Market, huddling together under an overhang to hide from the rain. We told everyone who would listen that we were bound for Australia. It wasn't totally untrue. I mean, the boy had family there that we hoped would help us out. I guess we figured we could both get jobs as we went, travel for a while, and finish school later. That hope soon gave way to fear. Our money was running out fast. Getting to Australia was turning to be a rather complicated affair, and we weren't going to have enough to stay in the hostel for much longer. We were two spoiled kids who were used to blowing our money the second it reached our pockets. I had no understanding of how much it actually took to live independently. Unfortunately for me, it turned out to be a lot. Our poverty forced us into big responsibility. Under such dire circumstances, you learn to ignore the cravings you were once a slave to. You buy only what you need, and only at the lowest price. Food purchases didn't happen until we were actually starving. We didn't even do laundry until we absolutely had to. We sat down and planned every single expense down to the dollar, so eager to prove that we could do it on our own. But to be honest, you don't really know who you are until you're freezing cold, soaking wet, and waiting in a 24-hour cafe for a sketchy guy from Craigslist to pay you a third of what your laptop is worth so that you can survive another few days. I strongly believe that how you react to that moment says a lot about who you are. It forced toughness out of me that I didn't know I had. How could I? It's not like life as a middle-class white girl had really pushed me to my limits. That's not to say that this newfound strength was dominating my psyche. Survival stress is a different beast than academic or even family stress, and it left both of us constantly on edge. Adam and I fought all the time because of it. Thank goodness we always realized quickly that we wouldn't make it without each other's support. We could not mess this up. Call it stubbornness or stupidity, but we refused to go home and ask for help. I believed unfailingly that we would survive if we kept on trying. We also had a lot of time on our hands, and we spent most of it somewhat aimlessly, exploring a city we had lived in for years but never fully knew. During one such journey, we found a lost dog named Biscuit in a rich neighborhood. We had hoped to get some cash for returning her safely to her home, when all we got was a thank you. We were absolutely crushed. Herding Biscuit back to her house was a great bit of fun though. When you don't have modern technology at your disposal, you learn to find amusement in smaller things. It kept us from going insane. Before we left home, almost every aspect of our lives had been controlled by adults. But now, that power rested entirely with us. I was adapting as well as I could, but I was still vastly underprepared for living independently. To be fair, not many high school seniors would be properly equipped to handle what we had going on. Not only were we trying to hide from anyone who may have been looking for us, but also trying to figure out the immigration process while finding ways to support ourselves. It seemed like my boyfriend's relatives in Australia would be willing to take us, but if they didn't, we had no backup plan. Our parents were absolutely terrified. They found out what we were planning to do, and they knew that if we actually pulled it off, we would be beyond their help. From our limited communications at this point, it seemed to me that they thought we had resorted to either drugs or prostitution. We would never have done that, of course, but I will regret being the source of their pain for the rest of my life. Our adventure taught us what was necessary to live in the real world, but if we went home, we could take the time to be prepared for it. Succeeding out there would be a lot easier with a high school diploma. And I'd never been very happy about throwing away the years of work I'd already put towards mine. We could go home, we could make things right with our families, we could save up some money, graduate, and have jobs and housing lined up before we left again. We could do things the right way this time. And so we took one more day to enjoy the city and our freedom. And then we went home. It had been less than a week, but it felt like it had been much, much longer. Going back was much harder than leaving. Repairing my relationship with my parents was a messy process that still isn't over yet. And trust me, missing a week of school is difficult enough without the entire student body thinking that you gotten married and left the country. I'm not sure where the marriage bit entered the rumor pool, but there it was. Even the office ladies were talking about the honor students turned away runaway bride. Beyond that, I found it hard to care about the importance of high school after my experience. I felt utterly disillusioned and disconnected from my old life. It seemed to me that everyone's existence was so mundane. They drove to school, paid for their iced coffee with their parents' money, texted their friends on their brand new iPhones, and didn't seem to worry about anything at all. Well, except for finding their prom outfits. How could I be concerned with our senior prank when a couple of days before, I had been stuck in the rain, hungry, and begging for change to get back to my hostel. I had gone from one extreme to another, and my old life didn't fit anymore. From then on, my friendships changed. Some ended altogether. I didn't want to talk about what had happened, and if I had to cut people off to avoid it, so be it. That was easy, considering my lack of cell phone. I needed the extra time anyways. My grades were in need of some serious recovery. When all the dust settled, I didn't want to run away from my problems anymore. I had needed space from my situation to figure out how to fix it, to know that everything would be okay. I didn't need to go as far as Australia. University would be enough, and much less risky. As with most high school relationships, Adam and I broke up. We don't talk anymore, but at the same time, I'm not capable of feeling much hatred for someone I shared this kind of experience with. I grew up a lot that week in ways that were irreversible. I learned how to be sneaky and how to get what I wanted from other adults, how to exercise self-control, and how to navigate the sketchy things that happen in the grimy parts of any downtown. Most of all, I can handle my problems with a level of maturity I didn't have before. I demand the respect I know I deserve. I talk about what's bothering me, and I take space when I need it. Anything to keep the internal tension from rising to a boiling point. In the end, running away was only a crude means of getting some perspective. It was not an answer. My relationship with my parents never fully recovered, and I had a hard time living in the same place. Every corner of the town reminded me of Adam. Sometimes the memories made me smile, and other times it caused my heart so much pain. You would think that after graduating from high school, I would be mature enough to choose wisely, but let me ask you to think again. I didn't want to immediately go to college. Instead, I decided to travel around for a bit. Something inside had urged me to believe that traveling will change my life. If you want to know about my travel experience, stay tuned until next week.